conservative, constitutional. It's the Andrew Cooperrider Show, keeping you informed on what's going on right here in Kentucky.
And welcome, everybody, to another amazing day right here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. Of course, I'm your host, Andrew Cooperrider. And today you're going to want to sit down. You listen wherever, but you're going to want to maybe get a pen and a pad together because we're going to go through a lot of bills. You know, we're in the final few days. We're going to rapid fire through some bills that you may want to be able to take action on. You may want to call your senator or call your House representative on and tell them to get a bill moving, to not vote for a bill, so on and so forth. If this is of interest to you, right? If more than just listening along and hearing about what the legislature is doing, hey, that's an okay thing to do as well, obviously. But if you want to take it a step further and make a difference, actually calling on bills, calling up to the Legislative Research Commission is an incredibly important first step. But before I dig down into it and maybe giving you all a chance to go ahead and get out your pens and papers or get ready to take notes or whatever it is you need to do, I do want to cover a story I went over yesterday, the Garrett County Library story, where I'd mentioned almost in passing that the Garrett County Library had at one point sent out this stickers and pins questionnaire. They do this book box where kids come by, they pick up a box. It's got a couple once a month. It's got a couple books in it, some stickers, some pins, those kinds of things. They sent out a questionnaire to these kids for them to fill out in order to customize their book box. And that questionnaire had questions for what they're into. And it asked cutesy, kawaii, emo, goth, dark, anime, Pokemon, DC, and Marvel Comics, South Park, LGBTQIA, colors and flags, asexual, pansexual, bisexual, transgender, gender fluid, progressive. Notice straight wasn't an option there. Anyways, and so they put this list and they said, okay, you can pick whatever you want. And obviously, and this list went out first and foremost, no matter the age of which it went out, the fact that this is a taxpayer-funded entity, the county library, is a problem. That alone, a problem. This is clearly ideology that a good number of conservatives would disagree with, and Garrett County is like a massively Republican county. And so chances are 80% of the people who pay for that library to exist do not believe in this stuff, not just at a simple level of, oh, I don't really like that, but as a religious level. They think it's literally an abomination at a religious level. And you're with force taking their money from them and then using it to fund these things, and they're, of course, taking issue with it. The library sending this out, that's already an issue, that they would even push this out there. But the other issue here is this went into boxes of kids I know for a fact were 10, 11 years old. You're asking them their sexuality. You're not just asking them their quote-unquote gender because you've bought into the lie that a male can become a woman and a woman a male, and there's gender in between, and gender's on a spectrum, don't you see? It's not just that. You're asking them whether they're asexual, pansexual, or bisexual. By the way, you didn't offer straight or just homosexual. But anyways, asexual, pansexual, or bisexual, specifically bisexual, asexual too, and pansexual are not gender identities. Those are sexualities. You're asking a 10-year-old what they find sexually attractive. I don't even want somebody talking to my son who's 12 about what he finds sexually attractive. Like, that's crazy. Some stranger, some government entity, especially talking to my kid about that. Don't talk to my kid about that. That's not you. Stay away from my kid. Absolutely disgusting and ridiculous. And the library knows it. The library's director, head librarian person, actually commented on my Facebook and had a response to this survey, a problem with this survey. And it's funny because there were some people on Twitter like, oh, there's no way this is true. This didn't happen. Because it's just so ridiculous that even lefties, they couldn't actually defend what they were saying. I mean, some tried, and it was disgusting what they tried to say, but they couldn't actually defend it. And so they first claimed that it wasn't true, but the librarian person did make a comment on it. The head librarian there, the Laura McWilliams, who, by the way, her Facebook profile picture is her in a mask saying, I got vaccinated. Anyways, she said, this survey regarding pen and sticker choices was put in a few teen book boxes one time last year without administrative approval. Period. She goes on to say more, but I want to pause there real quick to break that down. First off, it wasn't put in a few teen book boxes, okay? I know for a fact, like at 10, 11-year-olds were getting them, all right? They weren't teens, okay? So you've already started off as a liar, easily provable liar, because of the places where people are getting these. Everybody who got them knows. Here's your second problem. You said one time last year. Well, one time's one time too many. Secondly, last year, we're only 3 months into this year. So was it 4 months ago, 6 months ago? And you know what? Honestly, it doesn't matter. It matters that it was done. And what you should have said is, yes, we were made aware of this on this date. These are the corrective actions we've taken. And those corrective actions better include firing the employee. I'll give you a hint, they don't. And then they followed that up with without administrative approval. Imagine any other business where an employee does something wrong. And your claim is, well, they did that without our approval. You know, waitress brings you, cold food. So you call over the manager and says, look, that was an unauthorized transaction. That waitress was not authorized to bring over the cold food, so you cannot hold us accountable for that. That is on her. Could you imagine that? But that's what they're saying. They're saying this was unauthorized without administrative approval. Does administrators normally approve what goes into the boxes? Do you normally have an administrative approval process and they went around your established process? Because if so, they should be fired. No, they just did something and you're getting heat for it. So you're saying, oh, look, we didn't approve this. Well, yeah, every time your employee does something and messes up, generally speaking, you didn't approve it, but you're still accountable for it because you're in charge of running the ship there. They follow up with, the staff member was reprimanded. Whatever, it doesn't go into how they were reprimanded because they should have been fired. And the survey removed from boxes immediately. Make it sound like the survey never went out. It went out. People got them. It was a poorly worded survey at best, and the issue was dealt with immediately. See, here's the real secret. Here's what they're really saying, okay? When she's talking about a poorly worded survey at best, she's saying that they actually don't have a problem with asking kids their sexualities and genders. They have a problem with how it was done and how it was put forward. That they worded it poorly. They didn't clearly put it forward. Well, maybe you should have left out the sexualities, but you could have still asked them the genders, and that would have been okay. And what's the intention that I know that would have been okay? Because their follow-up here, they say, the staff member had the best of intentions and created the survey regarding pens and sticker choices after being approached by several teens about the subject. She wanted everyone to feel safe, validated, and respected at the library. So the action was unauthorized, but also it was really, really good, right? She has been since taught the boundaries and what is considered appropriate. Should have been fired, not allowed anywhere near kids. The library will not ask anyone, regardless of age, about their sexual or gender identity and will continue to provide quality library services to all citizens of Garrett County. That was their statement. Doesn't deny it. Instead makes smarmy, weak excuses for what is an absolute horrific thing. This person clearly doesn't have the values of the district and of the county that she's being paid for. She should be dismissed. The entire staff should be let go of. Anybody who says it's okay to ask 10-year-olds their sexuality and says, oopsies, slipped our minds, out of there. We can't stand for this anymore. The future of our kids are too important. And I'm tired of having to deal with these people make excuses for behavior that in the past would have immediately led them to be fired, would have immediately led them to be a pariah, would have immediately led them to be subjected to, maybe you might be a little bit of a pedophile there. We should get this person some help. We should keep an eye on this person. We should put them on a watch list. That kind of behavior. Walking up to 10-year-olds, asking them their sexuality would have wounded you in jail, but now we have a library making excuses for it. It's disgusting and gross. They're gross. I'm tired of dealing with these absolutely morally reprehensible monsters. But coming up after this, we'll be digging into some pieces of legislation. We'll have that after this short break. You're listening to the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. And you are back with the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics too. So we're coming up on the end of the veto period. Any piece of legislation, once again, that at all Andy Beshear would veto would have to be passed before Thursday this week. So we've got, today's Tuesday. So you got 2 more days. Realistically speaking, a bill that hasn't at least passed one house by now, either the House or the Senate, is not going to pass. So calling on a bill that hasn't even gotten a committee hearing yet, that Beshear would normally veto, and trying to get it a committee hearing is a waste of time at this point, in my humble opinion. You have 2 days left, okay? But calling on bills that are moving quick through the legislature could be important. Things are moving so quick that bills I'm going to go through with you now, they could have already passed, been called forward, called into committees, moving around. They could have already been voted on by the time you hear that. There's a lot of things moving. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't be following up with your legislators on what's going on. And so the first bills I want to cover, and the most important bills, are these that have passed one chamber or the other. And these are bills that you may want to either support. You may want to be calling up somebody to say, hey, we want to see this passed. Or you may actually want to see dead. You want to see it not called. So you want to be calling to say, hey, make sure you vote no on this. And right now, these final days, there's a lot going on. A lot of things want attention. If you want something not to pass, and you can organize a good push of vote calling up there to say, don't vote yes on this, it actually does make a huge difference. And what's going on right here in your own backyard, too? What's going on right here in Kentucky? I mean, I know there's a lot of news out there, a lot of people chitter-chattering about that national spending bill, the disgrace it was. And I hear you. It was absolutely disgraceful that Republicans passed that. They could have just passed a continuing resolution, and it would have been a more conservative move than what they did pass. But, what are you going to do about that? Not much. I mean, you live in one congressional member's district. You are but one person. But what can you do about what's going on right here in Kentucky? You can do a lot, actually. 10, 20 people calling a senator? A couple of senators? That could really stop a bill. So I'm going to start off with bills that have passed the House, looking to be called up for a vote in the Senate. So on these bills, if you like them or you want to stop them, your call would be to a senator, okay? So first, we have House Bill 11, HB 11. That is those of you who listen to the show, I played that Savannah Maddox floor speech, where she was going after Rebecca Raymer, who put this bill forward because she was outlawing basically a lot of vapor products, these e-cigarette products. You already can't buy them if you're under 21. So you had to be over 21 to buy them. But she was outlawing, this bill would outlaw any electronic e-cigarette vapor products that are not approved by the FDA, which is pretty crazy when you start looking at things like cigarettes not needing to go through the same process, and they're at least the same amount of damage. So you might want to call House Bill 11, call your senator, tell them to vote no on that. If you're in the same mindset as me. If you're not, well, then you would take a different opinion on it, I guess. House Bill 39, this was one we covered last week, I believe on Friday there, with Rob Holdsworth from the VFW. They want this dead in the water. They don't think they're going to get it changed back to its original language, so they're saying vote no on this. That's House Bill 39, a veterans benefits bill that originally was a good bill that was turned into a crud sandwich, and so they're saying vote no. So you want to call your senators, and those of you who remember that, and say vote no on House Bill 39. The veterans, they don't want it. It's the bill to deal with claim sharks, charging exorbitant fees for helping veterans get their disability benefits from the federal government. So it's just taking advantage of veterans, awful, horrible things. House Bill 45, now those first two, House Bill 11 and 39, told you call your senator, if I was you, and tell them to vote no on it and not call it forward. But House Bill 45 will be one you want them to call forward. House Bill 45 deals with automated enforcement. And so this passes, it prevents things like drones and automatic license plate readers and other things from being used right here in Kentucky in order to enforce our laws, this automated enforcement system. With growing AI and those types of tools, this stops the state from really spying on you under the guise of trying to keep you safe, or if it doesn't stop it completely, but it's a step in the right direction. So you want to see House Bill 45 called forward and voted yes on. Now, election integrity, people. Listen up here. We've got House Bill 53. It's passed the House, waiting for the Senate to call it forward, which requires the state to do one random vote scanner on one random race to be hand counted to audit the vote scanner, at least in every county. So in every county, the state has to grab one vote scanner, grab the paper ballots out of that vote scanner, and then count, because right now in Kentucky, you go in to vote, you get a paper ballot, you fill that out, and then you fill it into a vote scanner that actually counts the vote. So this requires them to choose one random vote scanner and one random race on that ballot to hand count, and then square that with the scanner's results. The scanner's, vote tallies, as well as how many votes were fed into the scanner to make sure that that adds up to how many votes they have coming out. Really just a double check on the entire thing completely. And so that's great. So if you're for election integrity, having this automatic audit in every single county of at least one scanner of double checking that they're voting accurately, incredibly important. That would mean there'd be 120 vote scanners that would be double checked this next election. And if you start seeing issues with them, then that leads to greater action. So at least it can lead us in the right direction if you're concerned about the accuracy of our vote counters. If you're concerned about whether or not our scanners are voting those votes correctly, well, this helps deal with that. So I'd call your senator and tell them to vote yes on House Bill 53. Vote yes on House Bill 53. House Bill 96, you may remember this bill is the Moment of Silence bill that requires schools and teachers to give students a few minutes of silence in the morning for quiet meditation or thought. They cannot provide any instruction to them for what to do with that time. They can't tell them, hey, pray or meditate or whatever. As long as they're not being disruptive, they can do anything they want with those few moments of silence. And then it also requires the school to let the parents know that they're doing this, and for parents and encouraging parents to tell their children what to do with that moment of silence. So it's a great way and a great opportunity to provide a moment of quiet reflection and settlement. Once you get into school, you've been rushing in, maybe you're running late, you've thrown things into the bag, you're trying to make it on time. And with this moment of silence, you can collect yourself. I think that's important. So House Bill 96, you want your senators to vote yes on House Bill 96. House Bill 255, that's the minors can work law. That one's been through committee. They say it needs a little bit of work. Basically, it shrinks the requirements for minors when they can work, how often they can work, and what they can work in to be the same as that of the federal government. In some places, it's actually more permissible than the federal government. I'm a big proponent of kids working. I think it's great for them. I worked as a young buck. I got my first actual real paycheck job at 14. I was doing work obviously around the farm before that. Mini farm, I guess, whatever you want to call it. We had horses and we baled hay and had chickens and those kinds of things. So I was doing work around there, baling hay, those kinds of things well before 14. So, I think that is definitely in my opinion, a great bill. Allow these kids to work more they can. It helps them build important life skills. So that'd be vote yes. And these are my opinions too. Keep that in mind. These are my opinions. You can disagree. That would be, in my opinion, a vote yes on House Bill 255. Call your senator, tell them to vote yes on House Bill 255. House Bill 258, that's the dog or cat torture bill. Now, I don't like dogs or cats being tortured just as much as the next guy. Okay, I don't like it. Right? Makes you a horrible, awful person. No doubt about it. Here's the problem with House Bill 258. It elevates the abuse/torture, but abuse of a dog or cat past that of a child in some instances. And I can't think of a single, yes, abusing a dog or cat is absolutely awful. You're a garbage human for doing that, right? But I think you're objectively a worse person for abusing a child no matter how you do it. And with this law, we see that some of the lesser abuse in the third degree, for an example, child neglect, is actually being punished at a lower rate than dog or cat abuse. Essentially saying that we believe dogs or cats are more important than our kids, and I feel uncomfortable with that. And that's House Bill 258. There's also some other provisions in it I've got questions about. And so House Bill 258, we want to make sure, if you agree with me, that they vote no, that dogs and cats are not more valuable than kids. So vote no on House Bill 258. That would be, and keep in mind, all these bills have already passed the House. So it's up to the Senate to call them forward. They're the only bills, these are the only bills that conceivably speaking, mostly, I mean, they could fast track a bill and go around all the rules if they wanted to. But of like actual bills out there that they're considering, these are the only ones that could potentially pass either this week or the next 2 days, or, you know, things like the dog or cat torture bill. Beshear maybe won't veto it, so they feel comfortable sending that over to him with the 2 days they have after the veto period to overcome veto. So that could be a, you know, hey, we can push that off until the other 2 days. Because remember, this is the end until, this is where we can get conservative things done. Then after this, there's like 2 weeks of a break to get through the veto period. Then they come in, they overcome Beshear's vetoes, and then they can pass a few other bills in those last 2 days, and those bills being ones that they don't think Beshear would veto. So you could see House Bill 258 rear up there, but generally speaking, you'd want to say vote no. These aren't, like I said, they could pass other bills. It's just highly unlikely. Well, coming up after this, we'll be going into more of these bills for you to be able to be aware of in the Senate, and then we'll be switching over to the House bills you want to look out for in the House. We'll have all that and more here on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. We'll see you back here in a few short minutes. And you are back with the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. For the break, I've been going into bills that you're going to want to call on if you're that kind of person that calls on bills, or at least bills to be aware of. These are bills that have passed at least one of the chambers already. Remember, they only have 2 more days. Well, technically today, too. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. In order to get any bills that Beshear veto passed. And then after that, they've got 2 more days after 2-week break for him to veto or do whatever. They then have 2 more days to overcome his vetoes and vote on maybe some other bills. So realistically speaking, unless they sit down, they just fast track some random bill and speed it through the House pretty much in like 1 day, and the Senate in like another day. Because it takes normally at least 2 to 3 days. I mean, well, constitutionally it takes longer, but it takes at least a day or 2 to fast track a bill through. You're probably not going to see anything outside of this list pass. Not saying it won't happen. It may. We left off here talking about things in the Senate. So these are bills that have passed the House that now it's up to the Senate to make a decision on. So that's House Bill 275. Will be our next bill we'll discuss. That is misconduct by school staffers kind of bills to really address some of this misconduct by schools. Look, it's no secret. You know, those of you who listen to the show know how I feel about this. These public schools have 100-time greater incidence rate than even the Catholic Church did of sexual misconduct by school staff against these kids in schools. You know, whether it's just grooming or full-on sexual assault. I mean, you can't go a day without another story of some school person in Kentucky doing something toward or inappropriate with a child. And so what this bill does, House Bill 275, is it prohibits schools from entering into non-disclosure agreements when it comes to reporting or being able to talk about a school staff's misconduct when it comes to their behavior with a child. It requires also other background checking actions, requires you to check with prior schools more in-depthly, and requires, you know, a greater oversight into these teachers. Because what's happening and why it's such a problem is these teachers are able to commit these fraudulent actions, commit these horrible actions, and then go ahead and just change districts, and it doesn't really follow them. So there you go. House Bill 278 so that was House Bill 275. Sorry, that's talking about that covers misconduct by school staff non-disclosure agreements. So you want to call your senators and tell them to vote yes or pass House Bill 275. Yes on 275. House Bill 278 enhances penalties for certain child sex crimes against children of the sexual nature. That's House Bill 278. Want to vote yes for that to pass. So you want to tell them vote yes on House Bill 278. House Bill 463 is interesting. It deals with children on social media. This requires social media groups to have controls to not show minors obscene materials, as well as to give parents certain parental control, verification of children's age. And now, and also to kind of help limit some of the exposure to things that would otherwise be illegal to show children, but they're having access to it on social media. That's House Bill 463. Now, people will say, this is just government overreach. We just need to get your kids off social media. You know, why are parents even having their kids on social media? I don't have my kid on social media. And to you, I say, congratulations, you're a fantastic parent. I'm not saying that to be facetious. You're a good parent. You probably are. If you're aware that your kid probably shouldn't be on social media, my kid's not on social media. So your kid shouldn't be on social media, and you're probably aware of that, right? Maybe you are. Maybe you're not. Maybe you listen to this and your kids are on social media. That's your choice. But like I'm saying, my kid's not on social media. So you could sit there and say, well, just don't put your kids on social media. Why are we letting them on there in the first place? To which I say, great, you're a good parent. But there's a lot of parents out there that aren't that fantastic, especially on these issues. Maybe they're politically agnostic. They're not woke. They don't pay that much attention. They're not awoken or woke. They're not left or right. They're just living their lives, and they don't see anything wrong with it. But their kids are meanwhile being exposed to things that otherwise would be illegal. And they're not given the tools by these social media companies in order to watch them. You know, you see, this is a similar argument to the bills to require an age verification system on pornography websites to verify that the person they're showing this to is actually over the age of 18 beyond just clicking a button saying they're over 18. And a common attack against this is, well, people just need to stay on top of their kids better. They need to watch their kids better, which is just patently ridiculous. I mean, kids have to be on computers now for schools all the time. What are you going to do? Lean over their shoulder and watch them the entire time? What they're doing on their computer? Like, seriously, lean over their shoulder and watch them? And then people say, well, just install, parental software to make sure they're not on that. Make sure you should be taking care of it. It's illegal for you to show pornography to people under 18 in the first place. Why should I have to go out and spend money on a software to track my kid, how he's using online, or a parental blocker for the internet because you want to break the law and show obscene manner to my kids? Why should that fall to me? It'd be like me saying I need to follow around my 16-year-old once they can drive to make sure they don't end up buying alcohol. Not that they got a fake ID and they went around as much as they could the law in order to do it. Okay, I get that, right? You can't blame the businesses for that. But I need that, okay, it's illegal for kids under 21 to purchase alcohol, right? And imagine you have an issue with your kid drinking alcohol. If you don't, imagine you do. You probably generally should. So imagine your kid walks into a gas station at 16 years old, obviously 16 years old, buys a case of beer and gets drunk with the kids. And then when they ask the gas station why they sold that 16-year-old beer that was clearly 16, they said, their parents should have done a better job. Parents weren't here following them around, looking over their shoulder. That's patently ridiculous. That's not how we handle this. It is the seller's responsibility when they're selling something that is age controlled to verify the person they're selling it to is a proper age. So I say vote yes on House Bill 463. Call your senators and tell them to vote yes on House Bill 463. House Bill 575, that's a bill to prevent China from buying agricultural land, basically. That's basically what the bill does, or makes it harder for them to. That's House Bill 575, makes it harder for China buying land here in Kentucky. Call your legislator, tell them to vote yes, House Bill 575. House Bill 622 makes our federal senators a special elected position when it needs to be filled. So right now, if Senator, I don't know, let's just call him McConnell, Senator McConnell, happens to kick the bucket, whoever that is. Let's just pretend we have Senator, his name's McConnell, he kicks the bucket, he goes down. How he's replaced now, the governor just picks a replacement. Now, they kind of passed a law to say he had to pick somebody of the same party, but that can be challenged in court. What this would say is the governor has to call a special election to pick the replacement. So we all would get to vote on that person who replaces them. That makes a lot more sense. So we'd want to vote yes on House Bill 622. Vote yes, House Bill 622. House Bill 626 is the protesting bill. This bill would make it the gray area. You may remember me talking about this, where you couldn't be too loud in your protesting. And if you were too loud, you would end up somehow maybe accidentally breaking the law. And so if you're too loud with your protesting and you violated that, that'd put you at House Bill 626 would on your second offense, charge you with a Class D felony, which is at least a year in prison, as well as losing your rights to own a firearm for protesting too loudly in the Capitol Rotunda. I think that's a little ridiculous. You want to pass a law saying they can't interrupt legislative proceedings? I'm with you 100%. I agree. We had issues with that last year of these lefties coming into these chambers and making a ruckus in the gallery, basically trying to do a heckler's veto. I'm with you. But to sit here and say, hey, look, protesting too loudly near the legislature is illegal. That's ridiculous. So that's House Bill 626. I would say vote no. Tell your senators vote no on House Bill 626. House Bill 695, that's the Adaptiveness Kindergarten Project. I covered that at length on the show. It's a pet project of a lobbyist, of some group that's hired lobbyists to try to get it passed, because they would be the ones hired by the state to administer this program. It's basically a 20-minute a night thing where you read with kindergartners and they use a computer. It's a boondoggle. The way it's set up, it's a pilot project. The way it's set up, they're guaranteed to get good results, because a parent who will spend 20 minutes with their kid was going to spend 20 minutes with their kid regardless of whether you provide them with this program or not. So the way it's set up, it's bound to lead to success, and it'll expand out, and it'll be useless boondoggle. So I would say vote no on House Bill 695. Well, coming up after this, we'll be digging into now what you be calling your House legislators about. What should they be voting on? We'll go over that after this short break. You're listening to the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. And you're back with the Andrew Cooperrider Show, your source for Kentucky politics. So we've been going over bills for you to be calling. Priorly was your senators on, House bills. Now we'll go over the bills that you should be calling your House reps on. These are bills that have passed one of the two chambers, either the House or the Senate. In this case, now will be bills that have passed the Senate, and they're waiting for a vote in the House in order to become law. And as I said, you've got just a few days left here of the legislative session. So these bills, if you want them to be stopped or to move, you got to know which way. You got to know about them, and you got to know to call. So we'll dig down into some of these bills that you should be calling your House reps on. So a bill of note, and this is going to be one where I don't actually have an opinion one way or the other, is Senate Bill 3. When it moves the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife over to the Ag Department, moves it over to the Agriculture Department, moving it from the Tourism Department. Now, I've covered this in the show, but the hunters and the sportsmen who are, on top of this issue say that this will cause conflicts between the special interest of farmers versus hunters, which don't mix. People who've said the bill's fine says, hey, look, it gets it out of the governor's hands. It spreads out power. And then also the Ag Department already has some expertise as far as like wildlife management and horticulture, and being able to tap into those resources would help the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife be more efficient with their handling of their processes. So, that's one way or the other, depending on how you feel. Call your House rep on Senate Bill 3 if you want, and tell them what you think about it. Senate Bill 8 requires that members of the state school board should be elected. So right now they're appointed by the governor. What this bill would do, it'd make those board of commissioners, those board of education members, now be elected. So it makes 14 elected board member positions across the state that'd be set up by districts. Basically, you'd cut a congressional district in half, and then that can be elected for the position instead of a governor appointing them. Makes a lot of sense. You elect your local school board. This is the board above the man who's above the man who's above the board, whatever. This board is above that board. You should get to elect it too as well. Handles a lot of money having that elected. I think key things. So that's Senate Bill 8. You want your House reps to vote yes on it. Sorry for the coughs again. I still have that cough. I had it for now like a week, trying all the kinds of different tricks I can to get rid of it. Senate Bill 23 is a constitutional amendment that would make the homestead exemption for owners over 65 or older into our Kentucky Constitution. So right now, what that would do is that people who are 65 years or older would be constitutionally now afforded the right to not have any increase in their real property past the year of 65. Or if they purchase it past 65, they purchase it and then it can't go up from there. So basically like your house, what your home's worth. They cannot reassess what your home's worth after 65 and hit you with higher and higher tax bills after you've retired. That's what the constitutional amendment would put in place, make it a permanent thing. That is Senate Bill 23. So you want to call your House rep, tell them to vote yes, Senate Bill 23. Senate Bill 80, this is a voter ID law, and it stops, you have to use a actual government-issued voter ID to vote, and you can't use things like your college IDs to vote. Some of our universities around the state don't actually even use your ID to administer your college ID, but voting locations have been accepting you coming in and just showing like your UK student ID, your ID from around, different public universities, whatever, Campbell's University, whatever, to even private schools IDs to be a valid ID to confirm your identity. And let's keep in mind the private colleges aren't even government entities in the first place. At least public universities are government entities. But anyways, it's a voter ID law. Fantastic. So you want to call your House reps and tell them to vote yes on Senate Bill 80. Senate Bill 130 requires government to not discriminate based upon digital access. So this basically requires government to always accept cash and to not require people have to go online to fill out forms. That you will always be able to walk in, pay cash for something if you need to with the government or check, and you will always. I think it actually does mandate they take cash, but you'll always be able to pay that way. You won't have to use a card, and also you won't have to go online to fill out applications for things with the government here in the state of Kentucky. That you can do it through a written format. So that's fantastic. So that's Senate Bill 130. You want your House reps voting yes on that. Senate Bill 147 is the child sexual content bill dealing with things like drag shows and cabaret and other types of adult entertainment and exposure from not being done around children and not being done at publicly funded entities like your publicly funded convention centers, your state-owned park centers, those kinds of places. And also, like I said, requiring that they make sure kids are not being exposed to sexual material. It's a fantastic bill. Senate Bill 147, vote yes on that. So you want to tell your House reps, vote yes on Senate Bill 147. Senate Bill 167 is the cursive bill. Longtime listeners know how I feel about this. I don't feel so strongly about it. I'm going to call in or anything like that, but maybe you do one way or the other. But Senate Bill 167 requires kids to learn cursive and sign their name in order to graduate high school. And I just said, and I said this on the show, can we just let cursive die, please? Like, nobody handwrites things anymore on forms. The only time you're handwriting things as an adult normally is on forms, unless you're using, and most of those forms require you to print anyways. And then if you're taking notes yourself, some people do use pens and papers to take notes, but then it's just about whether or not you can read it. So it really doesn't matter whether you're writing in cursive or print or anything like that. Some people put some studies up saying, if they learn cursive, kids are smarter, and maybe that's true, or maybe it's bunk science. I don't know. I don't care. I just wish cursive would die. My opinion, it's a useless art form. But all of you hate me for it. I know you do. I know you all disagree with me on it. And that's okay. You can disagree with me on it all you want to. In fact, you can send your disagreements to info@theandrewshow.com. Once again, that's info@theandrewshow.com. If you want to complain about my views on cursive, though, I'm going to warn you, you're wasting your time because I don't care. Anyways, Senate Bill 249, that's an interesting bill. It requires sex offenders to use their real names on social media. So if you're a registered sex offender, you have to use your actual name that you're born with in order while you're online. So you can't use some other name to hide the fact that you're a sex offender in order to engage with minors. It's about and protecting, people who would otherwise be victims. So they know. So if they want to do a background check, they can find out. And this was a example used. The example the bill sponsor used was something about a private event. Somebody had asked to sponsor it or tickets or be listed as a sponsor of the event on Facebook. And they did a background check of the name on Facebook, came back clean. They said, okay. And then they found out their real name and found out they were a child sex offender. And this was a child event. And so obviously issue. So they, that's part of where this bill originates from. So however you feel about that, and this is just a weird one. Senate Bill 349, not a weird one. Sorry, this is an important one. Senate Bill 349 is a new board to put forward to push coal on people. We covered this, like I said, on the show. A lot of these bills we've covered in depth on the show because they're interesting, they're important, which might be why they're dragging their feet on some of them. But the bill basically creates a new regulatory body to help oversee some of the regulations, help in quotations, on electric. Basically, the Public Utilities Commission has been greatly compromised and, in my opinion, politically compromised, especially after this last governor's election. They waited till after the election, like the day after, to announce coal closures, and is being used. There's a war going on in the energy industry between green energy and coal and fossil fuels. And it's kind of been weaponized on one side, so this now puts forward another commission to weaponize on the other side. It's just worth talking about. I'm not telling you how you should feel about it. It's just something that I think is worth addressing. Well, tomorrow we'll go over some other notable legislation, things that have passed, things that are moving forward. Just kind of keep you up to date. These are the final days of the legislative session. It's an important time to listen. There's going to be a lot of things flying, a lot of things going back and forth. I'm going to do the best I can to keep you up to date on exactly what's going on up there in Frankfort. So when something affects you, you know about it. And you can actually do something about it. Well, that's what we got time for today on the Andrew Cooperrider Show. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I hope you have a great rest of your day. As always, if you want to reach out to the show, feel free to email info@theandrewshow.com. If you want to check out past shows and episodes, head on over to theandrewshow.com. Have a great rest of your day.